Please welcome Mani Chidambaram to the stage.
All right, there we go. Good morning, LTEN. All right, that voice of God sounded great. This is a crowd that understands voice of God. If you will just bear with me 1 minute, because I don't get to talk to God very often. So, God, could you just say my name one more time?
Mani Chidambaram.
Oh, better than my mother says it. It's unbelievable. All right, good morning. Day 4, we've survived. Right off the bat, though, I want to thank you for being here. Laura, our board president, who you'll see at the end of the show today, talked on Tuesday about owning your own development and supporting your own career. And I'm happy to say that I'm looking at a room full of people doing just that on Thursday morning. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you for being here. Well, we're going to make this worth your while this morning. Today is going to be an amazing wrap for LTEN 2025. And I'm sincerely glad you're here to experience it with all of us. We've got some great panelists. We've got some great content planned for you today. But more importantly, we're going to figure out some things together. Highly interactive, not lecturing from the stage. After our morning break, you're going to want to be online, you're going to want to be powered up, and you're going to want to be logged in to either ChatGPT or Copilot, because we're going to have you working on your phones, your laptops, your iPads, whatever you brought. So get ready for that. That's going to start right sharply at 9:30. But before we move ahead, though, I want you to just take a few minutes with me and join me in looking back at what's been an unbelievable week here at LTEN 25 here in Denver. We've covered a lot of ground this week. This year, the LTEN team, our conference planners and reviewers, put together an event that was targeted to what we needed in 2025. They were on point, and all of us were intentionally interactive, and we were engaged. Let's share a few highlights, and I hope that you have your own list of takeaways to share with your teams as you fly back home later on today. If you remember back on Tuesday when we opened up, fantastic Lauren Waldman was up here, and remember she talked to us about factoring the brain into how we design learning. Lauren and her bare feet were with us for the rest of the week, but she created some really memorable and effective multi-sensory experiences. Hopefully you join me in downloading a very loud elephant noise on your phone. That one threw me out of my chair. That was unreal. Yesterday, our keynote was incredible, right? Simon Bailey, right? Absolutely. So many great quotes. Could not take notes fast enough. He clearly showed us yesterday how brilliant thinking is all around and how we are the architects of our future readiness. What a great title. I already ordered my business cards. And we had something like 70 workshops this week. And the ones that I was able to attend were spectacular, a lot of them on the subject we're talking about this morning. Who learned something at a workshop this week that they're going to directly apply to their work when they get home? All right, that is very encouraging. That's awesome. And we also, for the first time ever, had our LTEN Learning Excellence Awards Gala last night, and it was an amazing celebration right here in this room. And by scheduling it at night, we freed up a lot of time, a lot more learning time during the day, and it also gave our award winners a spotlight that they've so richly earned. One last time, please join me in congratulating this year's awards nominees, finalists, and winners. Oh, and by the way, one more thing, because this was definitely keeping me up last night. For those of you who had the chance to interact with those super cute rescued puppies that were at the Learning Village this week, I am very happy to tell you that as of this morning, each and every one of them is going to their permanent forever homes. They were all adopted this week. The fact that they were one short, I might have an extra piece of carry-on luggage on the way home. They still haven't found out, so let's keep that our little secret. All right, one more highlight, by the way, and this one comes with a thank you to all of you who helped out. A highlight of every LTEN conference is our annual charity drive, and this year's was no exception. The charity committee and our incredible charity sponsors, CLD, Illuminate, and Next Level Solutions, put together another opportunity for the second year in a row for LTEN to support the patients and families served by Ronald McDonald House Charities here in Denver. We're sharing some numbers here on the side screens that show exactly what we accomplished, and everyone who took part should be very proud of this year's contributions. And here in the high elevations, we took Lauren's advice, and boy, did we stay hydrated. I'm very happy to say that we wrote our max check of $2,500, which is going to the Ronald McDonald House. Thank you all. And while I'm sending thanks, let's do one more. Please join me in celebrating, acknowledging, and thanking our LTEN partner community whose support and sponsorship makes this week possible. And I really want to especially call out our 5 levels of preferred industry partners for their ongoing support and assistance. Thank you again. All right, so let's get into why we're all here today. All right, let's get to show you what what you all stayed for this morning. So you can see today's agenda, all right, which includes a panel discussion, which we're going to start up here in just a minute. I'm going to be happy to moderate that again this year, and then we're going to have a quick networking break at 9:15. When you come back, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to have a very hands-on breakout session led by Realtime AI, and you're not going to want to miss that. So please have your devices ready, and then we're going to close out with our board president, Laura Last, who's going to give our final send-off until next year. All right, everyone, let's deep dive, all right, into artificial intelligence and its role in our world of life sciences training. I'm going to introduce 4 panelists today who are going to share their thoughts and experiences with you, and then we're going to put you to work in a brand new way. Let's first meet the co-founders of Realtime AI and the World AI Summit, CEO Peter Cobabe and President Joshua Pellicer. Both Peter and Joshua are nationally recognized experts in applied AI and leadership training with a proven track record of streamlining operations, unlocking creative capacity, and driving measurable business results. And that's been a key topic of our conference this year, so you're going to want to pay attention. While their AI work spans many industries, they are increasingly focused on helping us as life science learning leaders explore practical AI tools that support decision-making, compliance, and learner engagement without, this is the key, without requiring technical expertise. That's what got me, because I am definitely in that camp for sure. And also joining us today are 2 other LTEN members from our own group, Megan Valentino, Senior Manager of Technology and Operations for BeOne Medicines, and Jim O'Day, Oncology Senior Manager of Commercial Learning and Development at Gilead Sciences. Your fan club's out here, Jim. Awesome. All right. They've both used AI tools in our world to support programs for their respective organizations, and their insights into how AI has practically enhanced both training strategy and field effectiveness are going to bring a meaningful layer to today's conversation. So let's get this thing started. Please welcome Peter, Joshua, Megan, and Jim. All right. Please. Thank you. All right, thank you. All right. Oh, awesome. A little fireside chat in my living room. So welcome, guys. This is going to be fun. So, one of the things that intrigued me about the workshops this week, right, was there's a statement made in one of the workshops that AI today is the worst that it's ever going to be. And that is a very sobering statement when you think about it, because I think we've all had some really amazing experiences and probably some problematic experiences with AI. So, actually, Megan, I wanted to start with you because I think you can relate to where I am in a lot of this AI journey in terms of just using AI for simple things to make your life just a little bit easier. Could you just relate a little bit? First of all, tell us just a quick thing about yourself, and then just give us a little bit of your experience with AI at work.
Sure. So I'm on the global talent development team at BeOne Medicines, and my job every day is to make sure that our learning business partners and our trainers have the technology, the resources, and the processes in place so that our learners get the best experience. But I think my first sort of intro into AI that really helped benefit my day-to-day was with Copilot. And I think everyone here pretty much knows how it works, but being in the operations person, it usually falls to me to do the minutes and kind of keep track of projects and action items and how things are going. And being a global company, I can't be at every call and every meeting, and it allows me to go in and see the minutes, read the discussions, understand why things might have pivoted, get the updates, and it just makes us so much more efficient.
And I'll tell you, I've had some experience as well. The minutes after a meeting and the action items have become so much simpler, right?
Yes. Yes, and then you're not having to rely on waiting for whoever was in the meeting to call you and explain what happened, or you're not hoping that they remember to let you know that something changed. So to be able to refer back to that and have it documented is wonderful.
That's really awesome. I know many of you have had that experience as well. I know for those of you who use Zoom, et cetera, it's all built in. But I will tell you, the one theme I think that we're going to hear all morning is that the human element never goes away from that. You can't just take those notes and send them. There's a little bit of proofreading still required, right?
Absolutely.
For sure, for sure. Jim, I know as I got to know you as we get ready for this conference, your experiences with AI have definitely been a little bit different. So first of all, just a little bit about yourself and talk to us about your foray.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. A little bit about myself. Been in the industry as long as I look, and various roles throughout my career that have allowed me to have a broad experience in where I am looking at AI and how I'm trying to elevate our sales force with it. And so at Gilead Oncology, we have an opportunity to work with a very talented partner that is allowing us to challenge how we train people to, regardless of their skill level, whether they're very early in their career or they've been doing it a long time, how can you create an environment that's psychologically safe, that allows them to practice with a real-time avatar, that allows them to have the look and feel of a discussion like we're having right now. And so that's been going very well. But there's some positives and there's some pitfalls, right? Because the psychological safety, and it butts up against some people's personal identity triggers, and there's some things you have to navigate. So some priming is very essential to making sure that an experienced sales force understands it, appreciates it, and is willing to dive into it. A lot of us are aware of AI, but it's usually in the background. Now we're actually asking them to interact with it in a real way, and people get there in their own time.
So Jim, let's talk about every trainee's favorite topic when they see it on the agenda, which is role play, right? Everybody loves role play. So let's talk about how role play is just basically advanced through the use of AI. And you talked about psychological safety. Talk to me a little bit more about that. What do you mean, and how has AI helped the psychological safety piece?
Okay, so let's just take, for example, that if you ask me to role play in front of this audience right now, there's going to be some emotional triggers they're going to be spiking for me. If I was to do that in a group of my peers outside of a stage environment, that same thing still happens. And so whether you're in a situation where you're in front of your peers and you're worried about how you're being perceived, the person who's on the receiving end of that role play who's giving you feedback doesn't want to hurt your feelings either. And so they're going to be able to tiptoe through it a little bit. Even though there's some constructive benefit to it, it's still not the same as AI, because it doesn't matter. The AI just looks at it kind of in a cold, calculated way and says, this is what I observed, and this is what you did really well, and this is where you have opportunity. Here's where you maybe stepped into a compliance area because you misrepresented, or maybe you even went off label. And it's devoid of that emotion, which is a positive in my perspective, because it allows somebody to just disengage and just really look at it from a standpoint of a critical thinking perspective. And it gives them real feedback that most humans are afraid to say.
You know, this is really interesting because as I'm listening to Megan and Jim, one thing that struck me is one of the themes that we've been talking about here at conferences for the last few years, including this week, is the fact that this function really needs to become strategic partners with the business. And as I'm listening to how Megan and Jim are using AI, it seems like it's freeing up your time a little bit from some of the mundane things so that you can actually dedicate a little bit more time to actually becoming a strategic partner. Would you agree? How's that helped you, Megan?
It absolutely has. When I first joined BeOne Medicines, I was on the global clinical operations team, and the team was still being built. And so it meant that we were having to buy a lot of off-the-shelf content or going to vendors and trying to build it on our own. And it's just, I'm not an SME, so there's only so much I could do. But then we got ChatGPT and Synthesia, which is a video AI platform with really high-quality avatars. And so I could go into ChatGPT, get some bulleted information from my SMEs, and actually ask it to build me a whole script. It would give me intro music ideas, imagery to use, and then I could just pop that into Synthesia, and now we have e-learnings. And so it has made us much more efficient as a small but mighty team.
That's really cool. And costs were kept pretty
Yes.
low as well,
Yes,
right?
very much
right?
so.
I just need to make a quick side comment here as I turn it over to Peter for just a second. I saw Peter this morning. We did not plan this. This was not scripted. He comes walking down the hall looking like he just walked out of Maui, which is exactly where his home office is, by the way. And notice, by the way, the shoes, there are none, which I just love. This is what running real-time AI can be like. This is fun.
Yeah, indeed.
I love it. So, one of the things I wanted to turn to you about was this week, as I talked to a lot of the colleagues that are sitting out here in the room, we are all obviously at very different places at our companies when it comes to AI. I happen to be working, I think you saw I work for Sanofi. We happen to be in our relatively conservative industry. Our CEO has given us permission to play, and we're maybe a little bit further ahead, not much. But I know I talked to a lot of colleagues that are in the audience today who are almost banned from using AI in their workplace for a variety of reasons, which we can get into. I'm just curious, with your experience as you've gotten to know our industry a lot more over the years, any tips and tricks for these folks to maybe open up their senior leadership's eyes to what AI can do and maybe take care of some of their fears?
Yeah, I think one of the best things that we can do is to get familiar with what the actual, not just use cases are, but what are those outcomes that we're looking to generate. And then the shortcut, in an effort to keep this brief, is to actually work with your AI, whether that's ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot, to even begin to draft a letter to your superiors explaining some of this and prepare some of that communication so that you can step forward and say, this isn't just to make us more efficient or to move things along faster. There's an additional set of outcomes that are possible here.
So a follow-up to that, because this is another theme that came up this week, and this is actually to the panel, with regards to the regulatory piece of all this, right? So obviously we all know the regulatory pressures and environment that we're in. And I know that one of the biggest issues that we faced is really trying to get our legal and regulatory teams to understand how this works and how do you approve something that's not scripted. So I'd love to just get your feedback and on that, please.
Yeah, so the solution to that is to not let anyone else outside the team actually use the tools. Like, don't try to make tools that you face directly with clients, because if a client or a customer that you're not talking to talks to an AI tool, it can say anything it wants. We actually, whenever AI first launched, there was this classic story of a company. It was a car sales company.
Okay.
That was like, oh, we're going to replace our sales team. So they were like, cool, we're going to make an AI that sells cars. And then one day they got a legitimate car order for $1 for a brand new truck. And they went through the conversation, and somebody had gamed the AI into promising $1 truck, and they were supposed to deliver this truck for $1.
Wow.
They ended up litigating and getting out of the deal. But that's the problem, right? People can actually get your AI to say anything. That's the problem. And then you go back and they get a result from it. Even though they're the ones that gamed it and messed with it to get it to say something different, you're responsible, for letting that happen. And since that's the case, the safe way to use AI, and probably the most effective way to use AI, is internally in your business, because then you have somebody QAing the output before it goes out somewhere. And you can't, blame AI and go, you're fired, or go, hey, you did a great job, AI. There's nothing there. So you really need responsibility. That's key.
No, that's really key. Did you want to add something to that?
Well, we talked about this yesterday from a compliance perspective, and I think there's guardrails that you can put around it. And the system that I'm working with and my partners at SmartWinner is that it doesn't go out into the internet. It's a closed loop. And so it's not going to be a system that's getting smarter with each interaction. It's designed to work with a set of rules that we put into it, and the interactions are designed each time for the individual to use it and get a little bit better, and you can have scoring and there's metrics that go along with it. But then when you go do it another time, it's going to start at that same point. So the compliance piece of it for my organization is resolved in the fact that the responses are canned and they've already approved them, so it doesn't go outside the loop we've created.
All right. That's the key takeaway from this, is just really try to keep it internal and not really have a customer facing up front. That makes a lot of sense. One of the other, as I was reading a lot of articles getting ready for this, I know I've heard AI called a cognitive sparring partner for you, right? To sort of push you a little bit, right, and make you think. So I just love to get your take on that in terms of how, in your work with AI and in real-time AI, how it's really helped you progress even in your own company.
Certainly. For me, when AI first starts sending messages back to you, actually it can be very validating. And so as we prompt it or invite it to challenge our assumptions, challenge the premises behind which our ideas are built on, you've got an incredible, potent, genius sort of system that can meet you on the level you are and adapt to where you're going. And so what this, I mean, it's more potent than any human's capacity to sort of mirror, reflect, challenge, and go deeper. And so we've leveraged this at almost every stage of our business, where we might start with a plan, but then we even ask, how could we improve this? What could be done better? Or considering our unique circumstances and situations, how do we adapt this to meet our needs and find us where we are?
Cool. To my industry colleagues, I know that as we go down this journey with our respective companies, change management, right, is obviously a huge issue, as we've dealt with in all parts of our world. But with AI, I know there's also the psychological piece as well, right? Oh my God, are they coming for my job? You know, that type of thing. So don't smile, we've been there, right? Three stories are coming to your head right now. I'd just like to talk to you individually about how you've handled that with respective colleagues in your company in terms of, oh my gosh, you know, I think it's coming for my job. How have you had those conversations, Megan?
That's actually a really good question. So as our team started to grow and we got new learning business partners on the team, we were stuck in that rut of a lot of our on-demand training was recordings of live presentations in the PowerPoint in the background that, you know, just they're not engaging at all. And so once we started learning how to use the tools like Articulate and pairing it with Synthesia and ChatGPT and BeOne, some other tools that we had, our trainers learned that they could use it to their advantage, and we took some of the repetitive, routine, on-demand recordings and made them into e-learnings, and that freed up their time to go build new content, to go be able to take on other projects. And so then they really saw that it wasn't replacing them, it was benefiting them to be able to go do more. So
that's great. Practical.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot of that as well, so I'm spot on. I think you're spot on with that. Where I'm personally working with a group of people is really more on the challenging, as I said before, with the sales representatives. And I think from that perspective, the context that I bring to it is the more established the representatives are, you have to look at more patterns of behaviors that they've established that led to their identity, that led to their success. And now you're introducing something in that is going to challenge how they do things and maybe how they think. And so as you work with a more tenured group, the more successful, and in my case, an oncology group that's more established, you're going to butt up against those identity triggers that we talked about. And it's one of those scenarios where you've got all the fears of, is Big Brother looking at me? Who's now challenging me? Am I not doing it right and someone's not telling me? Am I being given this because I'm supposed to get better? But you have all of those psychological doubts that kind of butt up against it. But if you roll it out in a way with really good priming for how and why we're doing this and create an environment where people can go up with change in a way that allows them to adopt it in their own way, then you start to see people, and some of the best successes were a scenario where one of our best people called me up and said, hey, just call me Mr. 20%. And I'm like, what do you mean 20%? He's like, I only got a 20 on that. He goes, but it really fired me up. And he goes, by the third time I was Mr. 80%. He goes, but it took me a time to really get out of my own head on that.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. The change management in industry, gentlemen, has been a challenge, right? We're a relatively conservative industry, as you're very well aware. And I know particularly in my company, when our operations team started really using AI to start giving representative suggestions, right, in terms of making customized calls, et cetera, those early years, and I'm talking about like 21, 22, were really, really rough. And I think there's many people in the audience I've talked to this week who can relate to this, where the suggestions were just really bad. And you know, when you're in a psychologically unsafe place already, and then this thing's coming in and telling you to call on doctors that passed away 3 years ago, you know, move right. it gets really frustrating. So I'd just love to hear from your experiences, not only in our industry, but others, how you've sort of gotten users like that sort of above that curve and to get them to where they are today.
So I'm a big believer in starting where it's easy. I used to do construction many years ago, in my early 20s, and one day my boss came out and was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm putting this wood into this thing you told me to put it in." He's like, "Why are you pulling from the bottom of the pile?" And I was like, "I didn't even know I was doing that. I just did it because I don't know why." Everyone thinks, I think, somewhere in their mind that things have to be hard. And whenever you look at your whole team, you can find champions that are going to be easy to work with AI in the beginning. They aren't going to be the ones that go, "This has to be perfect." They're not going to get upset if it's not exactly what they're looking for. They're going to be able to bob and weave a little bit with it. And I definitely would start with those people. And once they get integrated and they're using this more, it becomes proof for other people who are waiting to see if it's actually going to stay. Because the biggest annoyance to staff and team is use this new tool, oh wait, it didn't work. That is so annoying and so tiring, and people hate it so much. Change management and context shifting are like the biggest drain on people just in general. So starting with that, finding your champions that are just, I'm ready to start with this whole thing, and then giving everything to those people, just every kind of approach you can, teaching them whatever you can, letting them kind of make some mistakes and learn from those, helps you build your policy. And then once you have that policy, you already have buy-in from the top, say 10% of your people, 5 or 10% are going to be your champions. Then you're going to get 80% of your people afterwards that are all going to fall in, and then you're going to have 10% at the end that are just literally not going to ever do it. And those people will either shift to something that's really human-centric only, that you can't replace with AI, or you don't want to replace with AI, or they're just going to go meander somewhere else where it's not that big of a deal, So that's the way we've seen it happen in businesses actually work. That's what I've seen. What do you think, Peter? Is that?
Yeah, and I would add that the technology grows exponentially, and the first phase of that is deceptive, where it's starting to grow, but it's not quite there. And so we run into this it doesn't quite work yet, it doesn't quite work. It's been 8 years they've been working on this stuff, and I'm getting dead doctors recommended to me, and then one day suddenly it starts working. And so supporting people through that process, it really does become, as we mentioned, the identity triggers that come up, the psychological safety. These become the most important factors to the change, and so it's a great deal of almost leadership and personal development that are required to be incorporated with that process, because it's a personal thing whether or not we are enthused, willing to adopt, or threatened or scared by this. And so it does come down to how do we serve the people in their peopleness in order to facilitate the capacity to adopt new technologies, try new things. And then I'll just add, too, that so many of us are being driven to adopt technology to a degree that we start to look like tech companies, even though we never started as a tech company. And so this means iterative cycles. This means improving in ways that it's not a one and done where we're able to push it and publish it and it's all good to go and we never have to come back to it, but it's a consistent process of improvement. And so setting people up for that is pretty critical.
No, that's cool, Peter. Thank you. I wanted to throw something out to the group because Peter's last answer caused me to think about a couple of things I've been struggling with. In terms of when we're starting something new with AI, whatever the tool might be, I wanted to get your thoughts from your respective use cases as well as running real-time AI. What are your feelings versus starting a pilot with a small group of people and sort of testing things out before we roll it out versus starting at scale right up front? I've really heard both sides of the argument, and I'd love to hear your opinion. So why don't we start from the industry side, and then we'll come over to Peter.
Yeah, I've had experience in both, and I think as a trainer, you always ask yourself, what's the objective that you're trying to do? And so if it's something that at a senior leadership level, they've already identified through the research and the rigor that this is something the organization needs to do, then I think it really becomes, we start at scale and we push down. But then you have to follow things like the ADCAR model and make sure that the people that you're asking to make the change understand, they're aware of it, there's a desire for it. And that's where you start looking at it from the standpoint of you're asking for transformative change. And that's an adaptive process that takes time. And you have to get people to understand how it's rooted in their culture and their values. And If you don't do that, then it becomes one of those, all right, I'm just going to check the box next. So if you're not committed to that process, then it goes to what Josh was saying, and it's a smaller group of people, and you get your mavericks from the old tipping point stuff, right? And you get them to kind of drive it from the ground up. So I think it really depends on your perspective and the commitment from the organization top down.
That's good.
I would echo what he's saying. That my first thought was it depends.
Yeah.
But I do
Please.
see there's value in getting that sort of pilot in your champions, because people need to know what's in it for them. That with them is really important to get the buy-in, and you can't hit every single person. So if you can get those pockets across the company, I think that really is beneficial.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of a big pilot guy, but I think that pilots should be small and they should be fast. They shouldn't take forever.
Yeah.
The reason why, though, is, and I did marketing for a long time before I got into AI, and in marketing, you try to optimize your funnel. In sales, you try to optimize stuff in small groups, and then when it starts working really well, then you scale it. If you go straight to scale, you have a lot of loss. Like you'll lose a lot of opportunity. Now, sometimes speed matters way more than efficiency. And you make a call. If that's the case, great. Just go for it and roll it all out. But you are definitely not going to have smooth sailing. It's going to be rough, if you do that. So better, I think, to identify the people that are really flexible. Go for a small pilot for change, and then almost always it'll work at scale after that. But you find little tiny things that you never would have thought of. Okay. And usually it's difficult after you scale it. You have everybody's opinion now. And everyone comes in with all these different thoughts, and they go, oh, no, actually that thing that's slowing us down is really good. In a small pilot group, they go, no, I hate this. And then you never roll that out to people. Then people can suggest other things later to make it better. That's great. But I like minimum viable products, MVP.
MVP. Yep. That's great.
Yeah, and everything everyone said is great. I completely agree with this. It really does depend. If your organization has a track record of being able to deploy at scale, and this is not new terrain for you, then you're set up for something different. However, many of us are at the very early stage of our journey here, and we encourage playful exploration, and so it's important that exploration, that play, is done in a small container. If the impacts of that, if we're concerned about it, especially if we're talking about regulatory and compliance and those potential secondary and tertiary impacts of the effects that we're trying to create. And so, start small, grow from there, unless you're already a tank.
Speaking of that, we've got 151, by the way, fun fact, there are 151 different companies represented at this conference, which is a brand new record. And yes, absolutely, absolutely. And obvious, as you've all seen, as you all know, we come in all different shapes and sizes, right? So some of our IT teams and digital teams are one person, right? And others, we've got an army. But regardless of whether you're dealing with one person or an army, I know one of the things that's really, we've been talking about a lot this week is that relationship that you have with your IT/digital partners as we go through this journey. And as learning and development specialists, obviously we have different needs and et cetera for our AI. And sometimes digital doesn't quite understand the needs of L&D, right? They've never been in the field, they've never sold, they don't get what we do. So any suggestions from all of you in terms of working with your digital partners, starting at scale, showing them and helping them through the approval process so that you can get the right technologies inside the walls?
Yeah, I would say it's more important than ever to start creating cross-functional teams where your digital partners are right there in the room from the inception to the implementation of these concepts and ideas, and also to sort of relieve ourselves of this concept that IT is some separate thing that's happening in another department, where actually every single person in the organization is leveraging information technology. And so how do we merge that back into the full operational sort of powerhouse of each of our organizations, as opposed to sequestering them off in sort of an on-request, back and forth transactional relationship?
It's interesting you mentioned that. I want to hear from everybody else too. We talk about being business partners across the organization, but I will tell you that until recently, I never really thought of IT as a business partner, and this whole revolution that we're going through now is helping me change my mind, certainly, as we go through this.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting topic, I think, because IT's main concern typically is to make sure that when we roll something out, it's not going to break. and that everyone's not siloed in these little technical clusters where they're using different tools for 50 different things, and now we've got to like plug in the data for all this stuff, because what will happen to them is that people will come to them that are basically their superiors and say, hey, I want to know all the data about this, and now if there's 50 different sources of data, it's a pain in the butt, and they don't want to deal with it, you know? So their job is always going to be to like narrow it down to a few different things that you do, right? Or places that you put data. I think that that is the key to remember, because sometimes you want to test things and you want to test quick and rapid prototype. You really can't do that in a place where you're ready to scale. You're not trying to do it at scale. You're trying to do it in small pockets. So I think that having a rapid prototyping environment that's really safe for everybody to test things out is so important. And I definitely think that from there, if you add the whole IT team, you're going to scare the crap out of them. Like, they are not going to be happy about it.
He's not kidding. He's not kidding.
And they will push back, and understandably they'll push back, because they're responsible for making sure that nothing breaks. And as soon as they see you going, yeah, I use this doc over here, and then I put it in this tool, they're like, wait, you know, that's not the doc we use, and that's not the tool we use. Just make sure that whenever you do translate something, you've proven that it works, then you involve the tech team and go, how do we make this work in our current environment? Do we need to add anything or not, take anything away, or is it just not going to work? Because you might find something that saves you, you know, $10 million a year, literally. That is, you know, that takes you one session to find out using AI. It'll save you $10 million a year. We did that with one of our clients, and then they go, oh, well, we can't use it this way. You have to discard it, you know. And you have to use it a different way. Maybe it doesn't save you 10, it saves you 8. Okay, great, but at least it works, you know, and you're good. So I think that environment, like, make sure you keep sacred this sort of like sloppy early stage. And you'll hear me say that a lot, just as my personal opinion on that. So
Fair enough. Relationships with digital, guys, at your respective teams.
Would you like to go first?
Sure. I would kind of tacking on to what Peter was saying. I think we've just started to kind of get that relationship with our IT team, and it's really great because it's no longer us going to them and it's reactive to what we're saying we need. It's more of a strategic partnership, and you know, then they can advocate for us. They know, they understand how we're using it and why we're using it, and if they see something better or those, you know, those blips or opportunities, it's a much better partnership this way.
You know, and Jim, before we go to you, you know, this reminds me of something we've been talking about at this conference for umpteen years, the entire concept of concept reviews. And we used to talk about this with MLR and our legal teams. It's like, you know what? I want to create something, I want to say something. Let's not put it in front of them after we've created it, right, and get all the commentary. Let's get them involved in the conversation at the beginning, right? Let them know what we want to do and get their input up front, right? Makes life a lot easier. That's what it sounds like you're doing. That's awesome. Anything to add, Jim?
Yeah, and I would say absolutely, especially with the AI that we're using. That was something that started long before we even settled on what we were going to do. It was a matrix collaboration between sales leaders, marketing, IT, that was not only in the US based, but a global based. And so our journey really got going here at LTEN last year when they landed on, okay, this is the vendor we're going to use, and this is the person that we're going to move forward with because of all the reasons why it would work for what we're looking for, but it also could work with the firewalls and the systems and all of the things that I have no idea about, and making sure that all of that is vetted and put in place before I started getting into the process and tweaking scripts and looking at how it's all going to roll out. They were able to do all of that and make sure that it was, here's us as a group talking about this is what we want to accomplish.
Got it.
We aligned on it. They were able to do all that messy stuff before I was brought into it.
Well said. So, folks, we are quickly running out of time, and I know these folks want to get their hands going with the interactive workshop. Just based upon everything we've talked about here over the last few minutes, just any closing comments, words of wisdom as we wrap the session up.
Start over here and work our way around. Okay.
This is wide open.
From my perspective, I think I've said this to myself as much as anybody on stage or one-on-one conversations. We live in a world of AI, and it's running in the background all the time, but it's easy for us to ignore it. When you start getting hands-on with it, it starts to bring up emotional reactions to it. Help people get comfortable with it, and just continue to work in a safe environment, and help them recognize that we're not there to replace a job or it's Big Brother, but it's about that development, and it's not about being perfect, it's about getting better, and that journey, AI is a big part of that, and it helps us get there. So as long as they feel like they're not under attack and that it's a tool and a resource to help them grow, I think people are getting on board pretty quickly and get pretty excited about it. It's scary at first, even for me when I'm testing it. Like, I'm done, I'm sweating. But then the second or third time, I'm like, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
I would just say start easy, something that's comfortable and just test the waters and play around with it and go from there.
For some folks, that's going to start in about 15 minutes.
Yeah,
So that's
awesome.
going to be cool. I love it. I love it. Gentlemen?
Yeah, so my personal perspective, there was a study that was done when we first started getting into this business, actually, and it was ranking the effectiveness and abilities of AI versus people. And it was like a kind of a freaky moment because AI had almost doubled the effectiveness of people. But then they had a third part of the study where they had AI and people, and it outperformed both of them. And I think that this is something important to know, that that's always going to be the case. You're always going to have AI with people do better than AI and do better with people without AI, just because it helps organize things better. Just like a typewriter, the same thing happened with a typewriter with writing. It made things happen faster in the beginning, and every technological advancement's like this. So I think that that's just important to remember, that as you start learning this, you're going to be at the peak as you do this, and you'll be at your A game using this tool properly and all these tools properly. And we'll get into that and how to do that in a little bit here, of course, and it'll be super fun. But just remember that when you start using AI, if you think AI is going to take your job, it's because you're not using it. If you use AI, it's not going to take your job. You're going to be too valuable. You'll be able to do 10 things at once. And it actually is fun that way. So, or produce 10 times as much, or work 1/10 and be cool with that.
You know what Don't quote him on that one. So this actually brings me back to a quote from
the 1/10 part.
We're going to delete that part of the tape. So the thing is, what's interesting before we wrap up with you, Peter, is this brings me back to a quote Simon said yesterday, right, when he was talking about brilliance. And he said, organizations are going to fight to keep brilliant employees. And if this is going to help you do that, let's get on board. Final comment?
Yeah. To summarize some of that stuff, the culture that you create, that culture of safety, is what's going to pave the way for innovation. And so start thinking about that. What does that mean for us, for our team, for our organization? And then just kind of in closing, one of the most important decisions we will make as business leaders and as people doing work is which side of that line is for humans? Like, what is the work that humans are doing, and what is the work that is empowered by technology and AI? And that distinction and what lands on either side of those is going to be very, very important in the coming years. And so knowing where your value is and what you can bring to the table. And that's something we'll discuss in about 15 or 20 minutes.
Sounds good. What an energetic start to the day. Please give me a round of applause for the panel. Thank you, guys. This was awesome. Stay right here. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. I love it. Well, we're all going to be around. Folks, we're going to send you off in just a few minutes, right, for our morning break. And then, as promised, we're going to be back here in 15 minutes for a hands-on session that you definitely don't want to miss. Now, if you're ready for that now, awesome. If you're not, please, during the break, make sure that you get charged up, get online, and please log in to either ChatGPT or Copilot, whichever one you prefer. If you need any assistance for any of this, we've got some tech runners around. Guys, if you're around, could you raise your hand? All right. One up here, a couple back there, and we will definitely help you out. Grab a snack, maybe one more connection, because that might be the one that you really need as you leave the conference. That's it for me this morning. I'm going to be right down here with you at 9:30, learning with everybody else. Thanks again for being here today, and let's enjoy the rest of our day.